And good morning to everyone. We are moving on to the first session. And firstly, let me apologize to our kind speakers for this short delay. It's a great pleasure to host this session. It's dedicating to both policy making and, of course, the importance of how to involve social actors within this huge debate that we are having since yesterday. So, with no further ado, please welcome Spyros Flevaris from the DG Sante to present you the first presentation, to give the first presentation to you.
Thank you for to the organizing committee for the invitation to speak at this scientific meeting. I will briefly present to you the main elements of the European Union legislation on plant and forest reproductive material, the specific measures for conservation varieties, and the options we are considering in the ongoing revision of this legislation. So it is an important set of legislation because it regulates a very big market. The total annual market value in the European Union of seed and other reproductive and plant and forest reproductive material is estimated to be around 15 billion euros. The basic set of the legislation consists of 12 directives, 6 of which refer to the marketing of seeds, 5 of which are for agricultural plant species and 1 for vegetables. There is also 1 directive on the common catalogue of varieties of agricultural plant species, 4 directives on the marketing of other than seeds plant propagating material for vegetable, fruit plants, vine and ornamental plants, and 1 directive on the forest reproductive material. These directives set out the rules for the marketing of seeds and other reproductive material for the economically most important species for the European Union. And these directives have to be incorporated in the national legislation of each of the member states. The basic concepts are variety registration and, secondly, certification. So, in principle, in order to be marketed, a variety needs to be registered in a member state, and it can only be accepted for registration if it is distinct, stable, and sufficiently uniform. Additionally, for agricultural plant species, there is examination for satisfactory value for cultivation and use. This refers to yield, resistance to harmful organisms, behavior with respect to abiotic factors, and quality characteristics. So
Mr. Flevaris, please, apologies. Here in the room, we can't see the slides moving. Would you like us to share the presentation from the room?
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Sorry.
Yes, now it's okay.
So, once a variety is accepted in a national catalogue, it can be notified to Union Common Catalogue and be allowed to be marketed through the Union. The second pillar is the certification. This is a set of rules about field inspections and seed sampling and testing that takes part before marketing of the reproductive material and results in an official label. So, all in all, it is a system that aims to ensure the supply of high-quality seed and other plant reproductive material to the users. There are also marketing rules in the directives. So there is a definition of different marketing categories, pre-basic, basic, and certified seed, requirements to market in homogeneous lots to allow for traceability, and various requirements for packaging, sealing, and labeling. And there are also rules for imports from third countries. Basically, it is a system of recognizing equivalence of imported material to the union legislation requirements. The legislation was introduced in the 1960s, and according to the priorities back then, in that period, it was focused on the increase of productivity. Gradually, the questions of biodiversity and the conservation of plant genetic resources grew in importance, and as a result, in 2009 and 2010, specific rules were introduced with the objective to ensure the in situ conservation and the sustainable use of plant genetic resources. To achieve this objective, the legislation provides for derogations to the rules of acceptance of varieties and certification of seeds in relation to conservation varieties. So as regards the acceptance of conservation varieties, the member states have the option to modify the distinctness, stability, and uniformity examination as regards the uniformity requirements, or they may even decide not to require an official examination, but instead rely on other information for deciding whether to accept a variety in the catalogue. There are also derogations as regards certification of the seed, specifically in respect to the requirements for minimum varietal purity and the requirements concerning official examination. There are, however, certain requirements to be met. First of all, region of origin must be identified, meaning the region or regions in which the variety has historically been grown and to which it is naturally adapted. The variety, a conservation variety, must be maintained in the region of origin. The seed may be only produced in the region of origin, and the marketing takes also place in the region of origin. Finally, there are quantitative restrictions. So the legislation defines maximum quantities for the marketing of each conservation variety with one species, and the total quantity for all conservation varieties within one species together. So, for example, not exceeding 10% of the seed of species concerned. So, since the introduction of this legislation at the end of 2021, last year, we had in the common catalogue for the vegetables, in total 177 varieties for 24 species, and the 10 vegetable species to the most varieties were the common bean with 34 varieties, tomato with 33, pepper with 26, and then onion, cabbage, garlic, turnip, lettuce, peas, broad beans, with varieties from 10 to 5, and another 14 species with only 1 to 4 varieties accepted. The numbers are a bit higher as regards agricultural plant species. At the end of 2021, there were 396 varieties for 29 species. The first species was wheat with 82 varieties, potato with 76, then maize 39 varieties, durum wheat 31, and then a number of other species with fewer number of varieties. Of course, there is a big significant variation at the national level. So for some member states have achieved that conservation varieties are have an important share of their national catalogue. On the left side, you can see the numbers for the agricultural plant species. For example, Sweden has 28% of its national catalogue for agricultural species are conservation varieties. but for most member states, the numbers are even lower than 1%. And there are several countries who have not utilized the directives and they have not registered any conservation varieties. So we have tried to evaluate the success of this legislation, and the opinions collected in a number of consultations are divergent. As regards the interpretation of these numbers we have on the I just presented, overall, there is agreement that the measures have had a positive impact on the conservation of plant genetic resources. There are stakeholders who find the number of varieties registered a success, and of course others that say that these numbers are not enough to achieve the objective of conservation of plant genetic resources. So there is also divergence of views as regards why the numbers are not higher. For certain stakeholders, the answer is that there is no demand in the market, so there is no interest to register such varieties. For other stakeholders, the reasons are linked to the requirements, and even if these requirements are reduced for the conservation varieties, they are still considered as an obstacle for many. There is also a problem that actually we have no knowledge of actual seed production. Varieties may be on the catalogs, but we don't know if the seed is really available. So currently at the European Commission, we are preparing a proposal for the revision of the legislation, which includes also the rules for conservation varieties. So this is a much broader exercise, seeking to remove obstacles in the internal market and to ensure equal conditions for the operators across the Union, seeking secondly to ensure a wide diversity of choice of plant and forest reproductive material for all types of users and consumers, to support the innovation and competitiveness of the sector, and to contribute to the wider Union objectives regarding adaptation to and mitigation of climate change impacts, the food security, sustainability of production, and protection of biodiversity. In this broader framework, a specific objective is to further support the conservation and sustainable use of plant and forest genetic resources. And for this matter, what we are going to do is we're going to examine the current restrictions placed on for the listing of the acceptance of conservation varieties to see whether we can further lighten the rules. We are seeking also to introduce similar rules for conservation varieties for fruit plants and vine. And also, we are looking how else we can support the use of more diverse material. We get information that there is local breeding of new varieties adapted to local conditions. And this is also something we are looking to see how to support better with a new proposal. The Commission intends to present this proposal by the end of this year. So, thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much for the presentation. And all the work you are doing in DigiSante, it's true that you cannot manage what you cannot count, so numbers and figures are always very helpful, and let's hope for a constant improvement. Don't forget to put your questions on the application so we can have a look later on at the end of the session. And can we please move to our second speaker, Gisela Guaglia from DG Agri. Good morning.
Hello, good morning.
Good
Can
morning.
you hear me?
Sorry for the short delay. The floor is yours. You're welcome.
Thank you. So good morning again. I would like to thank the organizer for this invitation to have the opportunity to present research and innovation activities that we are doing in the Commission for Conservation, Use and Use of Plant Genetic Resources. I work in DG Agri in the unit F2 that deals with research and innovation. So this audience is very much aware of the importance and value of genetic resources for agriculture, and this was just highlighted during the opening. But I would like to mention a few things that we take in consideration when we plan research and innovation in this area. Genetic diversity in agriculture and forestry is vital for ensuring food security, high quality food production, and also healthy diets. Plant genetic resources hold the key for adapting crops to a changing climate, which we are increasingly facing worldwide, not only in Europe, for making crops and forests more diverse and for better adapt to cope with the impacts of climate change and new pests and diseases. Genetic resources are the basis for resilience of farming and forestry systems, and also landrace and crop wild relatives, particularly valuable source of genetic variation. A systematic effort towards the identification and incorporation of these valuable resources is of crucial importance for agriculture. So I prepare a few slides on how genetic resources are cutting across the different strategies that were launched after the European Green Deal. So biodiversity is the basis for sustainable and resilient agriculture and forestry, and it's recognized this in the Farm to Fork strategy, the biodiversity strategy, and the recent forestry strategy that are under the Green Deal. So the way farmers manage their land has immediate effects on domesticated and also native biodiversity. The goals of the Farm to Fork strategy as part of the European Green Deal includes to reduce the environmental and climate footprint of the food system, but also strengthening the resilience and ensuring food security in the face of climate change and reducing biodiversity loss. So farmers need to have access to a wide range of quality seeds on plant varieties that are adapted to these challenging environments. And in the Farm to Fork strategy, we are promoting agroecology, and we have this target to achieve at least 25% of the EU agricultural land under organic farming by 2030. So this is how we will include genetic resources in our farms. But also we have the biodiversity strategy that states that the decline of genetic diversity must be reversed, and this can be done by facilitating the use of traditional varieties of crops and breeds, and this will also bring health benefit through a more nutritious diet. And finally, it's included also in the forestry strategy that propose measures to promote the production of forest reproductive material that is suitable for new climatic conditions. But genetic resources are also part of the EU policy. So ambitions to make diversity as a more integral part of farming are reflected also in the Common Agriculture Policy that will play a key role in supporting the agriculture sector. And it's a very important instrument that we have for managing this transition to sustainable food production system. Under the new CAP, member states could include intervention in its CAP strategic plans related to conservation, sustainable use and development of genetic resources in agriculture and in forestry. For example, they can introduce interventions to preserve on-farm endangered breeds and plant varieties that are under threat of genetic erosion, or to target action promoting in situ and ex situ conservation, the characterization, collection, and utilization of genetic resources in agriculture and forestry. Additionally, we have the eco schemes and other measures to promote diverse farming systems and practice that have a lower impact on biodiversity that can be also part of the CAP. And my colleague Spiridon had just presented the EU rules on plant reproductive material, which facilitates the marketing and the use of land races and conservation varieties. But research and innovation activities aim to halt the loss of genetic diversity, tapping into the vast gene pool of plants and make it available for breeders, farmers, and ultimately consumers. So breeding efforts are being also undertaken to broaden the genetic base of cultivated crops and to create varieties that meet the demands related to quality, resilience, and sustainability. There was a need for more systematic funding on genetic resources in the EU research program, and in Horizon 2020, we have implemented this and support genetic resources as a part of a wider agenda on diversification, resilience, and ecological approach. Particularly attention was given to promoting the use of genetic resources in agriculture, forestry, and the creation of new value chains. I will give more details about this in a few minutes. But I want to highlight here that to bring research and practice close together and also to maximize the impact of research and innovation, we have implemented in our goals in Horizon 2020 what we call the multi-actor approach. In this approach, we explicitly request the participation of a variety of actors, so farmers, advisors, researchers, industry, consumers, with complementary knowledge and also skills in order to develop these solutions and also to speed up the uptake of innovations on the ground. Here you can see a constellation of projects or project logos related to genetic resources and breeding that have been funded under Horizon 2020. You can see that a significant amount of research and innovation activities has been undertaken to address the challenges of agrobiodiversity and plant genetic resources. We have funded more than 33 projects with an investment of over 189 million euros in the period 2014-2020. So we can see here logos that represent projects that deals with traditional resources for agriculture, diversity, management and use of genetic resources, several projects that aims to increase the interspecific diversity, projects dealing with organic breeding, in situ conservation, innovations in plant variety testing, and finally, in 2020, we have launched a call that from trying to make this, to fill this gap from agrobiodiversity to sustainable value change, to make use of all these varieties that are available for farmers, but we need to find a market for them. So in this meeting, you will hear also results from some of these projects. So for projects just recently started, funded by Horizon 2020, Radiant, BioValue, Crop Diva, and Divine Food, each of these projects aim to support agrobiodiversity with value creation. So promoting the use of underutilized crops and land races, and bring this to the complete value chain. So improving also the deployment of these crops and varieties. So we expect that this project will put agrobiodiversity in action, make use of plant genetic resources across farmland and also the value chain. To conclude, and this is my last slides, I want to present what is being done now in Horizon Europe. That is the new research and innovation program that has started last year. Horizon Europe is a 7-year program that will run till 2027. Under Horizon Europe, we have a budget around of 9 billion euros that is going to be invested in Cluster 6, that is related to agriculture, food, bioeconomy, and the environment for the period 21-27. In last year, we have also adopted the strategic plan that is a novelty in Horizon Europe and had set the strategic orientation for a better targeting of investments in the 4 years of the program. Then with this strategic plan, we make sure that the research and innovation actions contribute to the EU priorities. In the strategic plan, it was established the need to improve conservation, management, and use of plant genetic resources, preserving and enhancing agrobiodiversity. This was translated in actions, in call for proposals in the first work program 21-22 that was also published last year. And in Destination 1 in Cluster 6, under the heading Managing Biodiversity in Primary Production, we have included five topics that deals with plant genetic resources and breedings for agriculture and as well as forestry. We are currently working on the next work program, 23-24, that will follow the strategic orientation that were set as well in the strategic plan. And with that, I would like to thank you for your attention. And
Thank you very much for keeping the time. And of course, for raising the topics of sustainable food production and through the genetic resources, and not only environmental sustainability, but as you said, economically and socially more important. And we come to the last but not least contribution to this session to talk about the role of social actors. And I would like to welcome to the floor Riccardo Bocci from the network of Reti Semi-Rurali in Italia.
Thank you very much. I'm trying to connect my presentation. Can you see?
Sì, va bene.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to this conference. It's the first time for me to participate in this interesting conference on Landraces. I have seen some friends on the Zoom, also in presence as Valeria, so I would like to welcome all friends that are here or are participating in this meeting through Zoom as Costas. So I will say something about myself and my organization, then a short introduction about seed diversity, and then the role of actors that can play in seed diversity, and also how these actors can be recognized by public policy. Just to give an example, the new seed reform legislation should include them in this process. So Reti Semi-Rurali, we are the Italian seed network. We have 34 members, other organizations, profit and non-profit organizations, and we are also connected to other European networks, as mentioned before by Costas, the European Coordination Let's Liberate Diversity, but also EcoPB, the Consortium for Organic Plant Breeding, and also the GOSSI, the Global Open Seed Source Initiative. When we started almost 15 years ago working on agrobiodiversity, our main work was on conservation of landraces and farm conservation. Then we added something new in our activities, that is participatory plant breeding. So we started working with farmers, with citizens in the fields, and then the new framework that we are using now to define our activities is the community agrobiodiversity management. As you can see here, we are not more talking only about on-farm conservation, but our activities are also about seed sharing, promoting community seed banks, decentralized participatory research, supporting formal seed systems, and also supporting farm-based local seed enterprises. So something much more complex than just farm conservation. And so one important new actors that we have found thanks to the Diversity Food Project in Europe are community seed banks. In the survey that we did 5 years ago, we founded almost 80 community seed banks all around Europe, and there are new actors that play an important role in conservation of plant genetic resources, but also in breeding. Why seed diversity? I would like to quote two persons. The first one is Paul Gapps, is a breeder that some years ago, already in 2006, he was, let's say, saying that plant breeding has a paradox because it's using diversity, but it's providing uniformity to farmers. And he called this kind of plant breeding paradox. And we have to be aware of that, and we have also to change that in order to conserve agrobiodiversity in the fields. And the second quote that I would like to do is FAO. In one of the last report of the FAO, you can read something that is quite alarming. So they are saying that biodiverse agricultural landscapes are disappearing and they are replaced by large areas of monoculture. So in some way we have to answer to this point, and we have to diversify our farming systems. And was just mentioned before by the previous speaker, we have also in Europe the Common Agricultural Policy, Farm to Fork Strategy, Biodiversity Strategy. They are talking about 25% of organic agriculture, and how we can achieve this target. Only, let's say, achieving the issue of organic seeds. So improving organic seeds in Europe and releasing organic varieties and organic heterogeneous materials. So we have to address seeds if we would like to get the target of Farm to Fork strategy. How to do it? And then we have, in our opinion, we have two options to address seeds, organic seeds in Europe. The first one is bringing back diversity to food systems. So we have to be aware that our food systems are too uniform. And so we have to bring back diversity at species level, varieties level, ecosystem level, and so on. And the second option that we have, they are complementary, of course, it's breeding for marginal environments. So we have start again breeding for marginal environments as we did in the past, and not only breeding for uniform environment and conventional agriculture. So in this approach, we have to see to genetic resources not only as raw materials for breeding, but as a way to diversify our agricultural systems, to diversify our food systems, and then to diversify our diets. And of course, when we are talking about diets, we have to be aware that we are talking about public health and nutrition. So talking about plant genetic resources at the end, from a citizen point of view, it's a matter of public health and nutrition. And this is something that is more and more recognized also by scholars and scientists, as you can see here in this new book by Biodiversity International. Let me talk a little bit about the actors that we have to involve in the conservation and breeding process. These are results of the work done by Seed, an Horizon project mentioned before by the previous speaker. And we have found that when we are increasing diversity in farming system and the breeding process, it's more and more important the relation between breeder and user. So if we can imagine that in uniform breeding for pure line or F1, we have breeder and user that are one provider of innovation, the other one client of the innovation. In the case of population, organic heterogeneous materials, and organic varieties, there is a need to have more closer relationship between breeders and users. So scientists, farmers, but also citizens. And then breeding for diversity is something that is already happening in Europe, and we already have actors that are doing that. So let me explain briefly why, who, what, where, and when. Why? We have new actors, farmers that are working on conservation and breeding for diversity because they would like to change agricultural systems. So there is a social dimension in their choice, but then they have also something that is related to environmental aspects. So they would like to have an agriculture that are more close to nature. Then there are agronomic factors and also demand-driven factors. So citizens are asking products based on biodiversity. Who? Of course, we have scientists that are promoting breeding for diversity, but they are not alone. Scientists, they are working within institutions, but they are working with collective organizations. So more and more we are seeing in Europe kind of multi-actor systems where different actors are working together for breeding. And it's important also the role of what we call free actors, so the innovation brokers that are putting together all the different actors within this system. They are, of course, working on diversity. The key word of the actors is diversity. They are looking for specific characteristics of diversity of the plants. They are looking for traditional processing, in the case of bread or pasta making, but they are also looking for nutritional qualities of the product that they are growing. So diversity is really the key issue of the actors that are involved in the system. Where, of course, what is different from conventional agriculture, is the fact that they are working in their specific environment. In many cases, we are talking about marginal environments, so hills, mountains, and they have a strong link with their cultural heritage, and also from, let's say, a cultural point of view, there is a linkage with a specific territory. And from an economic point of view, we can call this kind of activities as niche market. It's also important the new relation that the actors they have with time, because they are based on the past, but they are looking to the future with the innovation activities they are doing. So there is a link with tradition, but there is also innovation within the systems. What is important to note is also that putting together actors, social processes, it's a process that takes time and also money. And then I would like to present something about these actors related to the project that we have been participating to from 2010. So the first one, Soliban, that was one of the most important projects at the European level, starting working on diversity and populations. And then the second one was DiversiFood. And in both projects, we worked on evolutionary populations, and you can read in this article the results of the project and the work that we did in Italy on software populations. One of the practical outcomes of our research, thanks to the project, was to have, for the first time in Italy, marketed the seeds of population, thanks to the derogation done by the DG Sante. So we achieved to have farmers' involvement, empowerment, labeling of the population market, and also was important that we develop a dedicated label, kind of open source seed label for the seeds that you can see here, where we put all the graphic identity of the population, but also what is important, the history of the breeding process to the clients of the seeds in order to know where the seeds come from, and also the new rules on IPRs, so that the seeds are not protected by plant breeders' rights, but they have an open source pledge on it. So they have some social rules to follow, and so. Some ideas for the future for discussions. So we need to have different varieties for different markets and with different innovation systems. If you look at the process of reform done 10 years ago during the better regulation process, you can find in the first evaluation of the seed marketing in Europe a quotation that was saying that we can imagine to have in Europe two different seed systems, one targeting conventional agriculture and the other one targeting local agriculture, organic agriculture. And so I think that we have to follow this idea. And so to find a way to have a place for different varieties with different rules according to the needs of the varieties and the actors involved. So this slide, it's something quite old because we developed during Farm Seed Opportunities in 2011. So after 11 years, we are still talking about that. So lesson learned, what is important for social actors involved in this process is that seed marketing is not only a possibility. So we are also using sharing of seeds, research, and so on. So participatory, decentralized, and multi-actors innovation should be promoted. And in this case, the actors involved should have a kind of common vision shared by them. We need to develop a legal pluralistic framework. So our seed laws, but also policies should support also this kind of activity. And we need to develop new professionalism. So people like, say, technicians, agronomists that can act as the pre-actors in these multi-actor projects. What are the weaknesses that we see? First of all, we have different languages in these multi-actor projects, values and vision and confrontation at the same time. So it's not so easy to work together. Then social processes are fragile, time-consuming, so we need time and money to develop social processes. And the third point is that innovation from a policy point of view, so for a lot of policymakers, is still considered only from a technological point of view. And then we are still in Europe embedded in this transfer of technology narrative. So I hope that these ideas can be useful for our discussion. I would like to thank you for my presentation, for inviting me. And I would like to invite you to this meeting that we are organizing together with Arkenoa, IFOAM, and many others, next 22nd of June at the European Parliament of the seed reform. So if you are in Brussels, please, you can join us. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And thank you for putting into the discussion also the topic of open sources as a new, I might add, a more democratic governance of the sector. I would give the opportunity now to make questions or...
Yes. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. I hope people from all over the world are watching us through the live streaming. So we welcome you to this scientific meeting. And now we have a question. First, we will start from the questions that we received in the Slido platform. It is addressed to all of you, all of the speakers, Mr. Flevaris, Mrs. Quaglia, and Mr. Bocci. It is coming from Sotirios Kosmas. He is the director of the Directorate of Plant Propagating Material and Genetic Resources from the Ministry of Rural Development and Food. So, the first question is, do you have an estimation of how many commercial plant varieties have been created by utilization of plant genetic resources in EU during the last 20 years? And the second question, coming also from Mr. Sotirios Kosmas, is it possible the production of food to rely solely on landraces, heterogeneous material, and organic varieties considering the increase of population? So, if any of the speakers wants to answer, I can see Mr. Bocci. Yes?
Yeah, thank you. I can start, then the other can follow and provide some maybe more information. I would like to start with the second one, that it seems to me really relevant in this moment, also related to the war that we have in Europe now, because at least in Italy we are talking a lot about food problems related to war. And I can say that we can answer to the question only if we change our food systems. So we don't have to change only varieties. So moving from conventional varieties to organic heterogeneous material, Landraces, organic varieties, and then have the food system as we have now. We have also to address two problems that we have in food system. One is the fact that we are wasting a lot of food all along the chain, and that's at least in Italy, 1/3 of our food is wasted by families, by processing actors, and so on. So we have to address that. It's impossible that at the moment we are losing 1/3 of our food all along the chain. And the second problem is about diets. We have to work with families, with citizens, in order to change their habit. We cannot maintain the habit that we have now because it's a problem for health, but it's a problem also for nature and our health. So I would answer yes, if we are able to change also our food system. And the first one, I don't have any numbers or figures about how many varieties have been developed by using Landraces. What is important is that at the moment breeders are using more and more elite varieties to release new varieties. So I can imagine that they are using less Landraces that they used to do. And that's, for me, a problem. And then the second point is that we don't have a clear picture about the pedigree of varieties. So one of the points that we are asking in the new seed reform is that about transparency of the breeding process and also transparency about the parents used for releasing varieties that should be included in the seed marketing reform. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Does Mrs. Quaglia or Mr. Flevaris have something else to add?
Yes, for the first question, thank you very much for the question. I think that this is part of the discussion and what we are having nowadays with the farm to fork strategy, to really change the food system taking into consideration from agriculture, but also production and waste, as Ricardo has just mentioned. So we cannot say that if it's possible, just relying solely on Landraces or heterogeneous varieties, we can feed the whole population, but from the research and innovation perspective, we intend to promote the use of underutilized crops and varieties, but also, as I show in my slides, to integrate in the value chain. So then also there is a market and there is diets that so consumers that can utilize these crops that are not mainstream. So that's from my side. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Mr. Flevaris, do you have something to add to?
No, I wouldn't have anything to add. There are thousands of varieties added to the catalogs every year, but we cannot really tell which is how they are bred. There is also the importance of wild relatives, crop wild relatives, that are not a matter of our legislation. So we really don't have something more to say on that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, since, yes, we don't have any question from the slide, though, one question from the audience here in the room. No. So, thank you so much, all of you, for the clear and comprehensive speeches you have presented us. And now we move on to the next session. Thank you very much. Have a nice day.